Hi, Mama.
Hi, sweetie. It's good to see you.
It's good to see you. Oh my goodness. I'm so excited for today. We have some really cool stories.
We really do. I am thrilled about this conversation. It's going to be a good one. So,
Yes.
to everyone tuning in, welcome to the Mother Daughter Download. This is a podcast where this mother daughter duo meet at the intersection of leadership and sociology. We're on opposite coasts and of different generations, but share a lot of love. My name is Lisa, and after 20 years in corporate HR, I now work as an executive coach and leadership consultant, and I'm thrilled about the work I get to do, helping leaders navigate overwhelm and cultivate new habits so they can lead with a bit of ease and contentment.
Yes, and I'm Alex. I'm the daughter. I'm a sociology professor here in the DMV area. Together, my mom and I examine workplace dynamics through a human-centered and impact-driven lens. We're here to explore how we can be more curious, courageous, and connected wherever it is that we work. Our conversations are grounded in lived experience, research, and ongoing growth. We're not claiming universal truths, just offering reflections, insights, and questions to grow alongside you.
So, this is episode 5 of the Mother Daughter Download, and we'll be discussing how to cope with burnout. And burnout isn't just about working too hard. It's emotional exhaustion. It can lead to disconnection and a loss of joy and purpose. So whether you're leading teams, navigating stress yourself, or an ally to others, this episode's for you.
Yeah, and of course, burnout does not discriminate, and neither does the pressure to perform. We'll share some stories from our listeners today, and we will provide some insights and advice that we have. If you have any insight or advice or suggestions, then we would love to hear it. Feel free to put any thoughts in the comments. We would love to read those. Of course, a reminder to our listeners, you can find the Mother Daughter Download on YouTube. And you will also be able to find some helpful resources and any sources that we use in the description section underneath this video.
So we invite you to, of course, like, subscribe, and share with your friends. And we also invite you to send your questions in to the Mother Daughter Download at gmail.com or leave them again in the comment section of this episode. So let's dig in today.
Yes, so I'm really excited. Essentially, what my mom and I did this past week was we reached out to a bunch of people as well as pulled stories from our listeners regarding what it's been like to experience burnout, what that means to them, some of their struggles. We have some people who are asking for advice, and we have some people who are providing insight. And, kind of unsurprisingly, the people that I reached out to more so younger generations are more so going through it and asking for advice. And I think that my mom has pulled together some beautiful stories from her colleagues regarding really fantastic insights that I think is going to be helpful to not only the younger generation, but everybody. And I'm just excited about this because I'm so lucky that I have a coach as my mom, and I can always lean on you for support and for advice. And I'm really excited for other people to be able to gain from that as well. So I'm looking forward to this. And so we're going to start off with a real quick recap of what burnout is and some of those symptoms and how you can notice it. So, Mom, I think you were going to take it away on that one.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I'm thrilled, of course. I just want to say being in this conversation with you and that it's a learning in both directions. And I agree. I think that what we saw in the stories, a lot of the folks, again, yes, in let's say my generation, 40s, well, I wish I was still in my 40s, 50s plus. I think the reality is, there's just more life experience, right?
Right.
And we've been able to navigate more of the challenges. It's not like they go away. They're just, I think that our ability to practice, we've had more practice is what I'll say. So
Yeah.
let's talk about burnout
Wait, I just
because,
want to say real quick,
yeah,
I want to like
yeah.
I personally have learned a lot just from this process over the past couple of weeks collecting these stories. And I
Mm.
just want to preface with that reaching out to people in any sense, older, your age, whoever, just connecting with others and gathering their experiences and their insight, can make you, first of all, not feel so alone in the experience. but also just want to say an overall theme, I think, is that reaching out for help and for insight from others is just so powerful because we're really all going through it. Not it's a common experience is all I'm saying.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that we had similar findings that people were happy to share their story. People like, geez, I could really, I could have I need some help in this area. I don't even know where to start. It can be really overwhelming. So understandable. So let's
Sorry, y'all. I had to take a little second for my dog Tucker, who is throwing a little temper tantrum, as cute as he is. But I'm sorry, Mom. I'll let you take it away.
Tucker. I don't think that you're ever throwing a temper tantrum. You're a good boy. You're
Yes,
such a
he
good boy.
he
All
is.
right, Tucker, let's talk about burnout.
Right.
So I just wanted to share because I've been having these conversations recently and doing a little bit of research. And Alex, you helped me with research, but I want to kind of go back and like burnout, the term was first coined back in 1975. That
Mm,
really wasn't too long ago. So the term was coined by this guy, Herbert Freudenberger. Anyway, so he defined it. He used it as emotional exhaustion and fatigue and depletion of, empathy and caring. So, not again, I just wanted to call out it wasn't that long ago where we're actually trying to put language to this feeling and this experience. So here are the four core symptoms of burnout. And I think this is like woven through the stories that we gathered. So one is exhaustion,
mhm,
just, true fatigue, got nothing left, nothing in the gas tank.
mm,
Uh, Number two, mental distancing from one's job. That's really relatable to me in my own experience.
mhm.
And that's a really hard one because when you love your job and then you're like, I got no energy for my job, it's really hard to experience that
Yeah,
lack of connection and engagement.
yeah.
Number two is cognitive impairment. And I know, you have this listed throughout some of our slides as well, but cognitive impairment, of course, that's impacting our thinking. So lack of clarity, lack of focus. It's really uncomfortable because you're like, you could be looking at a page and you're like, did I just read that or did I just do this work? And you're kind of recircling back to the same stuff. And the last one, number four, emotional impairment. And that's just feeling depleted and loss of joy.
Yeah, yeah. No, thank you for sharing that. And it really it did hit me because I'm facing this a bit myself right now in terms of again, I'm a professor. I absolutely love and adore my job and my students. It's the thing that makes me genuinely happy. But I am having to currently navigate finding a good balance between what I can do and how many classes I can teach without spreading myself too thin. Last semester, I taught 8 classes, which is really double what a full-time professor typically does. And I felt like I couldn't give 100% to all of my classes. And my goal is to always create just a fantastic experience and give my all to every class. So, I'm navigating so I think this is just poignant for me right now as I'm trying to figure out, okay, am I going to teach 8 classes again? Am I going to maybe cut it down to 6 so I can perform better and feel better as I'm teaching? So this has been really cool for me to review and has been helping me reflect on my own experiences
Yeah.
with burnout or
Yeah.
trying to avoid burnout, right? And,
Right.
and I really do
Yeah.
have to be in tune with like what do I value and what's important to me to be able to make decisions.
That's exactly right. Yeah, no, and you're already, bringing in the insights of I need to evaluate for myself and I need to figure out again, what are the boundaries, right? Where do I say no? Um, yeah, and it's not easy. I think that's the other thing too. I think sometimes we think like, oh, what's the one answer? What's the one solution? And we're going to be talking more about that today. And the answer is there is not one answer or solution. We're
It's so
individuals
personal.
and we're unique.
Yeah, it's so personal and what's going to work for you is be different than what works for anybody else. But I think at the
Yeah.
end of the day, what we need to tap into is, of course, listening to our own bodies, how we feel, and doing whatever it is that gives you rest and comfort, where you can step away and really kind of get back in tune with yourself and your passions and your hobbies. But
Mhm.
with that, I'll share a story from a friend of mine. She's 24 and she is sharing a story about current experiences with burnout. So, what she wrote was, I'm currently feeling very burnt out, and I've been feeling like this for the past few months. It feels like I'm on a never-ending loop, no breaks. I work retail, my job doesn't pay enough. My apartment pays, is more expensive than what it is that I make. It's been hard to, find a financial balance there. I've been applying to other jobs at no avail until just recently. Very proud of her. She did just get a job, so I'm excited. But that experience of applying for jobs, I have heard through many people who gave me their stories about how exhausting that is,
Mhm.
and just how can really put you down when that process takes a while. But so she's also reflecting on how she's taking a break from school so that she can work and save up to go back to school. And while taking a break, she kind of feels a bit down on herself, and she's been asking herself, I'm already burnt out. How can I possibly go back to school and balance having a job and being in school full time? And so her question was, what are some of the tools that you think I could utilize to not feel so burnt out? Or how do you suggest that I could possibly cope with this currently? And
Yeah.
again, I think that you had some listeners who provided some really good insights maybe on how to answer this question.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I'm going to kind of pull on some of the ideas and words of wisdom that were shared from a prior HR colleague I used to work with.
Mm-hmm.
And she's tremendous. And she, of course, has had her own experience of like, overwhelm or so much to do. And so some of the things that she had offered in from her own experience is recognizing what are my priorities,
Mm.
right? And I think that that's a real key thing. I think that's easy to say, like, oh, what are my priorities? And it's
Yeah,
like, but I think we have to be relentless and specific about naming it. Uh, And I'm thinking about myself. It's too easy to go like, all these things are important. Well,
right.
they can't. They can't be. And you're not, so whether it's my work or relationships or back to school or my housing, it's hard to say that they're all a priority. So just really kind of naming like how do you narrow it down to like the one or two things that are my priority. And back to again the wisdom that came in from this former HR colleague. She was like, you know what? I first of all recognized I was feeling exhausted, wasn't doing the things that I really enjoyed doing. She was doing a lot of yeses to things that she just didn't have time and space for. Like, why am I going to all these social events? I don't even like these social events. So I think that that's a really important point there, which is take inventory about what you're doing.
Yeah.
What are you saying yes to? And are you saying yes to too many things? And if it's not even like filling your tank, why are you saying yes? So
Yeah.
I think that that's a really good, and I'm curious, like, do you ever find yourself doing that, like saying yes to too many things and then going, why did I even do that?
Oh my God, always. But I will say that my friend Danae from grad school, she really empowered me by just giving me helpful phrases to communicate no. Because saying no is so hard.
Yes.
And again, like this comes down to our culture and wanting to be like the yes man and yes, I'll do whatever. And I even think about my bosses and the evaluations that they've written me. They're like, she'll do whatever, essentially. Like if we need her, Alex to show up because I say yes all the time. But there are situations where I do need to say no. And again, I credit, friends from grad school who helped me with this, but even just phrases like, I'm sorry, I'm at max capacity right now. I'm spread a bit too thin, but I appreciate the offer and I hope that we can reconnect in the future. And I think that can be a hard thing about saying no is how do we say no, right? And how do we say it without, I think we're afraid of being perceived as, of course, again, lazy or because we do associate, productivity with worth. And so saying no makes you feel icky inside and like you're not doing as much as you should be doing. So I think just even having good phrasing on how to say no
Yeah.
is really important. So that's really, do you have any other like phrases that you like to use when you're saying no?
Yeah, no, it's so what I guess what I was going to share is my own I was going to say failure of doing that well. So that's what I wanted to start with. And then as you
Yeah.
were talking, and of course I could come up with some, but I like Danae, so I'm gonna take some of those and use them. But what I was thinking about, and this just might be another resource for our listeners, is, and you're my daughter, so we know this about each other. I think that we end up maybe being in that accommodating space. And it made me think about, and we can put a link to this tool. There's this tool called the Thomas Kilmann Inventory, and it's an
Mm,
inventory for you to understand how you approach conflict. So I think that's another thing. Oh my goodness, the idea of saying no or setting my boundaries almost steps into this area of conflict. And there's different ways to, um, and styles
I think a
of
lot of
dealing.
people are avoidant when it comes to conflict, is what I'll say.
Yeah, so right. So we can compromise, we can collaborate, we can, kind of go in a really competitive, win-lose sort of situation. We can do the accommodating thing. So let's offer a link to that because I do know mine is accommodating, but I love this idea of yes, you need to practice and find those ways how to say no, and again, name those boundaries.
Yeah.
So a couple of other things that she said that just again might help that your friend who was talking about really feeling significant burnout right now. I thought this was awesome. This other listener suggested find people that can do the healthy things with you and
Yeah.
whatever that is to you.
Yeah.
So meaning you might have a walking or hiking buddy. You might have oh, I really enjoy, having a coffee meeting once a week. Or I want to connect with a person where I can do a hobby together with them. So whatever the healthy outlet is for you, this advice I thought was on point. Hang out with those friends because they can
Yeah.
then be an accountability partner, and then you're, engaging in, I think, some healthy activities together. So I thought that was really, really good advice. Any thoughts? How does that sit with you or resonate for you?
I have thoughts on that. First of all, yes, surround yourself with people who inspire you, right? People who, and again, I of course want to suggest being active. Get outside, take a walk, connect with nature in any way that you can. Find friends that will do that with you, but also be willing to do that by yourself. Grounding, which just means walking barefoot in earth, has been established in psychological research for years as something that's really healthy. And of course, it's
Mhm.
awesome to have someone to do that with you, but if you can just even go sit outside in the grass a couple
Yeah.
times a week, whatever, just as So I want to say, yes, find those friends that support and are willing to do those healthy activities with you. Like, I have a gym buddy, but then of course I have friends who aren't so
Yeah.
active, and of course you're not going to drop your friends who aren't active, but making sure that you have a balance. And the
Yeah.
important thing here that I was thinking when you were saying that is not everyone has that friend. So this is hard, but you might have to become that friend.
Mm.
To start. And when it comes to physical activity, I'm always like the best exercise is whatever you enjoy doing.
Yeah.
Right. So don't ever, don't do anything that you don't enjoy. Do something that feels good to you. And if that's going to the gym, if that's going for a walk, if that's going to sit in a park somewhere and have lunch, you might have to be that friend who suggests those things.
Yeah.
So, yes, surround yourself with people who inspire you and who bring positive energy to you, but also be willing to be the friend who might be the one inspiring others.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I find myself doing that a lot. Like one of my best friends and I made her get a pair of running sneakers recently, and I've been, making her come on runs with me. So sometimes you have to, kind of suggest those things yourself as well if you want that.
Yeah. And as you're talking about that and it is thinking about again all the great stories that we received, I think another thing that I want to just offer to again your friend who wrote in talking about again this overwhelming burnout right now is I think we're also need to be responsible about looking at our own current habits. This
Right.
is connecting
Right.
to saying, like, oh, should I be the friend?
Right.
And just meaning, what am I spending my time on? And I think all of us can go down a rabbit hole in, let's say, not the healthiest choices, whether that's social media, whether that's, too much time in front of Netflix. And again, I think we all need those days and times,
Of
but
course.
I'm just putting that out there in terms of when we're evaluating stress, what are our I think it's very important to look at what are my own habits
Yes.
that are either continuing to kind of keep the stress cycle going, and then if is there an opportunity to adjust so that I might ease my way out of the stress
Right.
cycle. So,
Yeah, and totally want to validate having your Netflix days, right? Mom, we've talked
yes.
about this. I very much value, and it's funny because I was talking to this next friend about this just the other day. I very much value my once a week nothing day. That means no chores, no social, like not even like really like hanging out with anybody, not just doing nothing, just
Yeah.
hanging out, just enjoying myself, hanging out with my dog, going on a long walk, and having no pressure to do chores or work or entertain. And that is so healing for me personally. And
Mhm.
this next friend kind of expressed that as well. But I will say that, just coming back real quickly to being that person or being that friend or taking that initiative, that can be really hard, and it takes experimentation, is what I want to say, is that you do need to experiment with different activities to figure out what it is that you do like. And again, this next friend, Carol, um, her and I have experimented a lot. Like we've gone and done archery, we got roller skates, and we were going roller skating together. Like you really have to kind of explore and find what it is that you like that is going to be your healthy, active habit. And so, you need to be willing to put yourself out there to discover what it is that you enjoy, right? But
Yeah.
so speaking of Carol, her story that she told me was, and she's 28, she's my age. So she is sharing that to her, she says, to me, feeling burnt out is when I physically and mentally cannot do any work related tasks. It's
Mhm.
almost like there's a stop sign put in place where my concentration should be going. I will sometimes stare blankly at my work. Find it hard to lift a finger. It feels like time won't pass. It feels like a limbo. And she says that it drains her physical health by killing her appetite and stripping
Mm.
joy away from her hobbies as she no longer has the brain power to
Yeah.
pursue them. And she, then kind of talks about how her relationships also take damage from this because, and I totally feel this for my generation and any generation that grew up with smartphones or iPads, is we kind of tend to default to scrolling. And sometimes we call this doom scrolling when we are
Uh-huh.
just stuck scrolling
Yep.
because of the kind of instant hit of dopamine, right? So
Yep.
she's just saying even my relationships can take a toll because when I am burnt out from work, when I come home, all I end up doing is kind of scrolling. And she expresses that it hurts her soul and that it
Mhm.
makes it so she doesn't have energy for dates with her partner. And she feels like her life is very much wake up, work, eat, sleep, repeat. And so her question was, how do I cope with burnout that isn't quitting my job or taking time off? Because taking her mind off of work and what she needs to do at work seems to be the hardest part of enjoying the rest of her day. And I just think that's so important when it comes to burnout, where it's like, you're burnt out from work and that ends up bleeding into your personal life and taking energy away from the things that you care about, which is sad.
Yeah. So, tremendous story. Again, I really want to just say kudos to everyone who did share their stories because I think it takes courage and again, being vulnerable in this way. So,
Which
thank
is
you.
totally the first step, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. So,
Yes.
I'm thinking about again the words of wisdom that was delivered to another friend, and I'll use her first name, Linda. She is um, I want to say, a go-to person for me for stories and advice and words of wisdom. She's incredible. So,
She's
Linda,
almost
go ahead.
70. She's almost 70, right? So she
That's
has some experience.
she has some experience and she's like no nonsense and she's just like, well, she'll let you have it. Uh,
Right.
I find it refreshing. So I really appreciate my conversations with her.
Need those friends.
So connecting, what you just shared from Carol and her, again, current experience, thinking about some of the things that Linda shared was you need to start with a name and know you can only control what you can control. And Linda had quoted her daughter, and I thought it was a great, you can only control the controllables. And I think it's really important to just pay attention to what is it that I can control? And yes, she needs to go to work, right? She has a work commitment.
Right.
But, and then I loved how you were just talking about experiments. And I think for all the advice that we're going to have and share during this is take on just one and try it for 30 days.
Right.
Don't try to go like, oh, I'm going to change my eating habits. I'm going to change my exercise habits. I'm going to change my sleeping. I mean,
Much.
it's too much.
One
And
thing at a time. One thing at a time.
so, yeah, thinking about your friend, and it goes back to again, what are the things, activities, or whatever that bring her joy, kind of fill her cup, whatever it is, gives her some fuel or energy. Just name one and then say, how am I going to be intentional about integrating that into my day? Whatever that thing is, right? It could be journaling, it could be meditating, it could be prayer, it could be a walk, it could be in nature, it could be the hobby. But I guess the thing is, and this is about cultivating habits, what is that one thing? And then where will you map it out to be in your day? It could just be 10 minutes. I'm not suggesting that people all of a sudden have all this extra time in their day, but what is the 10 minutes for that activity? And and then measure, measure how that is having impact to your day. And I loved how you were talking about, the use of phone is so it's funny we're always talking about like behavior change. There's this acronym ABC, and A is the antecedent, like, okay, well, what's the cue that forces me to go to my phone? Is it boredom? And then just the question as a possibility is, well, what might I do instead? Is can I call a friend? Can I do something else at that moment to then think about changing the behavior and then changing the outcome? But that was a lot. So I'm just going to pause and get your reaction to the idea of trying to find just a really small window of time and committing to it with an activity that is meaningful to you. I know
Yeah. No, when I,
sometimes easier said than done, but
oh, absolutely. And sort of tying it back to, and I would like to come back to this where you were talking earlier about you can't prioritize everything. And I would
yeah.
be curious about kind of what it is that you do to decide, is this a primary, is this a secondary, is this a tertiary, right? But going directly off of what you were just saying, just being realistic or being reflective, or it's important to be reflective and realistic about what gives you energy and what takes your energy. And I
Yeah.
remember, I swear, I think I was just at a bar one night a few years ago, and someone had asked me, what gives you energy? And I was like,
Mhm.
oh, like I'd never really thought in that way.
Yeah.
And I feel
Mhm.
extremely privileged and blessed and lucky and grateful that my job actually does give me energy, or teaching gives me
Yeah.
energy. I won't necessarily say that grading gives me energy, right? But I do, going into class, I'm always excited. I'm hyped to lecture. What do we talk about today? I'm excited for our discussions. What are we to learn together? What am I going to learn from my students? And that gives me energy, right? Not every part of my job, but the teaching part of my job for sure. And I just wanted to kind of connect that to when you're
Mhm.
thinking about dealing with burnout, maybe I'm just thinking this right now, but categorizing what gives and what sucks your energy, right? And we have to be realistic sometimes. Like for me, like I love the gym, right? And but that can totally be something that sucks energy, but also gives energy depending on how you look at it.
Mhm.
I think a good place to start would be really listing out those things that what gives me energy and what sucks my energy. And then
Yeah.
based on that list, how can I move forward about scheduling my time throughout the week? right?
Yes.
Like, how can I schedule in things? Because there's going to be things in life that are going to suck your energy.
Yes.
Is there a way that we can maybe not compartmentalize, but like almost balance our day with things that are going to be kind of draining and things that are
Hmm.
going to be kind of energizing? And how can we make sure that our day includes both components of those things?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Realistic or
No, no. And I love the question. And it particular going, I'm thinking about some a workshop that I lead, which we actually talk about doing an energy audit. And it's exactly what you described, which
what's
is
energy
what,
audit?
yeah, the energy audit. So, and we can maybe link that into our notes as well for this episode.
Cool.
And but it is exactly as you described. And this is the important part of, again, evaluating stress, because I think sometimes the the thing that we're talking about right now is how do I actually pause and actually take inventory, right? That's what we're saying. All right. And how do I actually pause and say, wow, I am feeling drained, or this is how I'm feeling. And that's the starting point, recognizing that, where is it showing up in your body? And then saying, okay, um, and let's say we've already done the work, we know what will give me energy. And then this is the part about being intentional. So back to Carol's story. She's got a job, right? And let's say the circumstance is that the job doesn't necessarily feed her or give her energy. So hopefully that's a whole other thing about evaluating, right? And making sure you get what you need. And, depending on who her boss is, or does she have a mentor within the organization, that's something else. But then I'm trying to stay on the vein of what does she have control over? And she has control over what does she want to do for herself. It's almost like gift of self to self before she goes to work or during a break and then after work.
Yeah.
And and it has to be, to your point, how do you strike the balance? Make sure that, again, when she can control, let's say, some 10-minute increments in her day, that they are things that actually fill her cup.
Yeah.
And again, are an energy source.
And I will
Um,
say Linda was pretty straightforward about it in what she had wrote in, and she said, very simple but very straightforward. Pay attention to your gut feeling, find a way to fix it.
yeah,
And unfortunately, like we are gonna be, again, surround yourself with positive people who are gonna uplift you and support you in your journey,
yeah,
but you're the only person who can really take control over your schedule and what you do with your time. But I
that's it.
also want to, as a sociologist, pull back really quickly and
Mhm.
say that we are right now discussing like individual solutions and suggestions and advice. But I want to be very clear that burnout is not an individual problem. I mean, it is. It's a
Mhm.
problem that we face as individuals, right? But it's not a you problem. You're not doing anything particularly wrong. Are there ways to mitigate these feelings? Absolutely. But this is a societal problem. And I feel strongly about this as a sociologist who studies society, right? And when, as a sociologist, what we look at is patterns and trends among
Yeah,
groups within society. And mom, like I said earlier, when we introduced this podcast, burnout doesn't discriminate.
yeah.
I think if you want to go back to our last podcast, podcast number 4, I did do more of a demographic analysis about maybe who's
Hmm.
hit hardest in regions
Hmm.
and minorities. But again, everybody faces burnout. And when we see that as a sociologist, when we see how a lot of people are struggling with this, we therefore can deduct or deduce or whatever that this is a social problem. It's not
Yeah,
just a few people here and there. It's
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 true.
most everybody. It's most everybody is dealing with this. And so I
Hmm.
just wanted to clarify and just make sure that we're clear that this isn't something, don't internalize this as your fault. This is
Yeah,
something that is based on the capitalist society that we're in. And what that means to me is that we are focused on profit, and that contributes to our social cultural norms in terms of grind culture or sensationalizing or valuing working really hard, right? And that kind of goes into, I'm sorry, I'm on a little rant, but that goes into the idea that our society is a meritocracy. Think of the word merit, right? Which means that, hey, you should be judged based on your merit and how hard you work, and you will be successful and you will achieve the American dream if you work hard. And that's the only way. So we quite literally, as society, value this idea of it's you and your individual work that determines your success, which is why we keep saying that we have, productivity is tied to worth. And so I just, again, I don't want anyone to feel that, oh my God, this is all just something I'm doing wrong. No, this is a problem that we're facing as a society. And I'll come back to this, but the solution is gonna be beyond just self-help and self-reflection, and all these things are good, but we do need to kind of come together as a community eventually. And when I think about like self-advocacy is a big thing that I keep seeing, and advocate for yourself and your own time and whatever, but we also need to advocate for each other, like at
Yeah.
work, in
Yeah.
terms of policy or rules within the workplace that allow people to have flexibility, mental health days, and just whatever time to, yeah,
Yeah.
just advocating for policy in the workplace that would
Yeah.
value people's mental health. And so based off
Yes.
that kind of connection to just policy and workplace, do you know of any, have you been at any workplaces where there were any policies or value into just flexibility and free time and
Yeah. Yeah.
self-care?
Yeah. And I think I have a couple of things that I want to respond to. So I hear you, and I want
Also,
to
I'm sorry, Tucker's throwing a little temper tantrum right now. But
let him do his thing. He's working out the stress cycle. That's what he's
exactly,
got going
he's
on.
dealing with his burnout.
He's doing what he needs to do. He has some physical activity. Um, I think there has been a very clear trend within the workplace that organizations, leadership indeed see and recognize the importance of well-being. I think there have indeed. Now, again, please understand when I say something like that, doesn't mean that every organization is doing it well, doesn't mean that every organization is, embracing that. But there is an absolute trend in that direction because employees are saying, listen, I want something more. I want purpose. I want meaningful work. I want learning and development. I want to be cared for. And yes, I care about my mental health so that I can sustain productivity and excellent work for you. So I think there's a trend and a healthy trend in that direction to, yes, be flexible, not be so hung up about if I don't see you at work, I don't think you're working. A lot of flexibility with hours. Hey, if the job allows, you do your best work in the morning, great, work in the morning. If you do your best work in the evening, do it in the evening. Again, if the job specific content of the job allows for that. Employers are doing that. And I think, yes, a lot more flexibility with time, talking about mental health, providing training, resources, speakers. So moving in that direction.
On the
And
spot,
yes,
if somebody wanted to self-advocate for more flexibility and free time, what might you suggest, excuse me, that they say to their superior boss, whoever? Is there an appropriate way to kind of ask that?
and again, let me just make sure I understand the question. They're advocating for more, did you say more time?
Yeah,
Like time off?
flexibility.
Flexibility. Okay.
Yeah, probably like flexibility overall in terms of, and that would kind of bleed into work hours, time off, mental health days.
Okay. So let's think about this because this is important because when I'm talking about the content of the job is can the job be can you execute on all the requirements and still embrace flexibility? If the
Ooh,
answer
I love numbers, right? Like showing objective, like I can do XYZ within this time.
Yeah. And what I'm saying is it's possible. So for example, I'm thinking about this. I'm a graphic designer, or I'm an engineer, or I'm a project manager. And then the point is for each of those jobs, who's the stakeholders, and if the hours, and I'm going to go with a traditional 9 to 5, if it doesn't matter that I work 9 to 5, I can still meet the needs of the key objectives of the job and the stakeholders that I work with. All right. So I just wanted to set that up first because, again, that's my HR background. I have to kind of think about, does it make sense for the business?
Right.
Then, if it does, now here's the conversation. You sit down with your supervisor, your boss, and you say, "Hey, listen, I understand, these are the key requirements. I have been executing well on each of them. Here are my results. With that being said, I want to have a conversation about the exploring the possibility of flexibility with my hours."
Mm,
And this is key. So then it's the ask. You've already said, like, "Hey, this is what's been done." And then, Alex, I'm going to go back to the word you had, experiment. This always works well in the workplace. To then say, I'd like to, consider, can I shift my hours to, I'm making it up, working from 11 to 6, if that works for the individual. And then say, and then can we assess the success of
mm,
these new hours or the success of the flexibility I'm asking for? Can we check in 30 or 60 days? That's
mm.
how I would ask. Does
That's
that
really
make sense?
Yeah, no, that's really good. That's really
Yeah.
good. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think bringing it back to like objective, hey, this is what I'm producing now, and
Yeah.
if we do this shift, let's check in and see if I'm
Yeah.
still producing the same. And if so, then what argument do you have, you know?
Yes.
So I think
Yeah.
that's really good. And so let me pop into our last kind
Yeah.
of set of questions and answers. So someone else I was talking to, current student, working on their master's degree and also working a lot and also doing a good job of
Mhm.
prioritizing their physical health, right? And so this is someone uh yeah, we'll call her Stella.
Yeah.
And from what I know of her, she does a great job, or from the outside, it looks like she does a fantastic job of balancing her kind of physical and health and workload. But that doesn't mean that you always feel that way. And then again, you might be kind of dropping off on your own kind of like emotional health or social relationships or things like that. But so she wrote it and she was reflecting on how, again, she's a student, she works full time, feels like she takes on a lot and feels like she tends to take on so much to the point that she ends up crashing, and that she finds that there's a pattern with this, which of course is not going to be healthy long term. And so her major question was, she said that she's trying to set boundaries and that she wants to be present. She wants to focus on her health. So she's already doing, that
Yeah.
that focus on the health.
Yeah.
But her question is, how can we make this sustainable? She asked, I would really be interested to hear how you manage the balance between ambition and well-being. And I
Yeah.
think that you had somebody who provided some good insight on this as well.
Absolutely. And so before I go into that, I'm giving some thought to this particular story in this instance. And this is what I want to share. And I do this work with the leaders I have the privilege of coaching, which is sometimes, and I hope this doesn't take us off track too much, but sometimes what we do, and I'm thinking about this individual story, which is like, I'm taking on more and I'm going to do more and I'm going to do more. This is where let's pause and say, why? Why am I doing that? And I can just relate to this myself as a over functioner
Yeah.
and overdoing.
Yes.
And the question is this: why might you be doing that? And the only person who can answer it, and this is what I end up uncovering in coaching conversations, is there's a belief system. And I'm
Mm,
just going to name one. I don't know what it is for this listener, for this particular story, but there can be a belief system of, I'm overdoing to prove my worth. I'm overdoing because then I feel like then I'm of value or I'm valuable as an individual. I'm overdoing, overachieving, or got this ambition road only. That's my focus. Um, because I feel that I'm making this, that might give me attention, or maybe that satisfies, or that's what I think about myself from an identity perspective. So when we start looking at this, and again, I know that again, we can be at the, look at the the importance here of burnout and stress, but sometimes the answers, they can be maybe there might be a root to it, is all I'm suggesting, and that there can be a belief system. So I'm going to pause. You have thoughts there?
I do.
Yeah.
My insight is that, so, I work at multiple schools, have worked at multiple schools, but I've been working at Prince George Community College for the past 5 years. In a PGCC, I have students from the age of 16 to 60, and I so value and learn so much from my older students. And they are such a blessing to have in class because they always really reassure the younger students in the class when we're talking about aging and these struggles, they're always like, you really develop your sense of self as you go. You develop more confidence as you go. Like, I don't take any, BS. I'm more assured in who I am and what my values are and what I need and what I want, right?
Mhm.
And I love hearing that too, because and I've seen that happen as I've aged. Like I'm still, I'm 28 and so still developing, but I feel so much more assured in myself, in my identity, in my needs, in my values than I did even just 5 years ago. And I can't imagine how much more that will develop as I go. And I've heard
Yeah.
just consistently from them that you start to not really care about what other people think as much, which I think can be really healthy. But so I just think it's interesting because the person we're talking about, Stella, who said this, is what, 22 years old. And, you're tying
Yeah.
it back to kind of a search for identity, right? Or what it is that means a lot to me, or what am I trying to prove, or what am I trying to portray? And so
Yeah.
I do think, I guess I'm just wondering, or I think that um I don't want to say this as like an objective statement, but I think that younger people might be more susceptible to burnout because they don't necessarily have that fully developed identity or value set. And again, I think when you start to care less about what other people think because you're more sure in yourself, you can maybe stand up for your boundaries more, or your
Right.
boundaries are more developed based on experience.
Yeah.
So, and not to say, again, burnout doesn't discriminate, it affects everybody. But I want you to tell me that as we get older, we might develop, more and stronger boundaries based on what we know about ourselves through our experiences over time. And that, I do think a lot of the people who reached out to me were looking for hope. And of course, not that anyone ever has it totally figured out, but I want you to tell me that you kind of become stronger in these senses as you get older and as you experience more.
Yeah, and it's a great question, and and I guess I want to make sure that I'm honest with you, which is yes, the muscle of being able to say no, or
Mm,
clarify what are my priorities, or know the things that fill my cup.
mhm,
That clarity comes with, again, age and experience.
mhm,
But and so the muscle, I just like anything else, right? We got to work at it. Um, we're able to strengthen our ability to navigate
mhm.
stress and so on and challenge. But what I want to be clear about is the challenge doesn't go away.
Right,
The
right.
challenge, right? In it meaning workplace challenges, family challenges, health challenges.
Mhm.
Um, they will continue to pepper
Forever.
your life. Yes. And then and we've been talking about it, but the strategies that we've been talking about here, I think, are the thread to carry you. And yes, you will begin to find the strategies that definitely work for you. But we've been talking about it, right? Whether it's good regular sleep, find the pattern and habits that work, whether it's again the meditation or prayer, whether it's nature and hobbies or social connection or saying no. And I loved how you were talking about it too, naming and knowing your values and using that as a decision making guide.
Yeah.
Because when you know what your values are, whether it's integrity or, collaboration or innovation or whatever, it just helps you make decisions in your life, simplicity or gratitude, then you can kind of look at challenges that come your way and or decisions that come your way and say, you know what, is this going to kind of align with who I am and what my goals are?
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
mm,
I think that that makes sense to me. Like as you have more experiences, you are to become more sure in your values and
yeah,
therefore more sure in a way of how to advocate for yourself. But of course, the
yeah,
challenges never are never to go away, and there's different
they
challenges
don't.
that come with every stage of life. So,
Yep.
you know what I mean? Like it's persistent. But whatever. I think that as long
Yeah.
as we're reflective and connect with ourselves, I think we can develop better ways to take care of ourselves.
That's exactly right. And the other thing too, sweetie, just as you were talking about chapters, and I think this is incredibly important, is know that what solves or makes you feel, let's say, I don't know, good or relief or rest now might be different in the future. So I
Yeah.
just always want to say that is going back, and I love let's the key word of the conversation, experiment with the different ways, and again making sure you're keeping track of it too, because you want to be able to say like, oh, is this making a difference for me or not? But I just want to throw in there that the ability to evolve over time and again try different things is incredibly important part of the journey
Yeah,
of managing
absolutely.
stress. Yeah. So
Absolutely. Well, I do want to say
mm,
that we're super grateful for our listeners and our
yeah.
supporters for sharing their stories and their questions and their advice. Mom, do you have any kind of maybe final goals or takeaways before I get into my few or
Yeah, no, I think that we've gone through them and, I actually wanted to make sure I provided this as a headline or in this conversation is when you're going through like stress or challenging times, I want to make sure that when we're talking about mental health, that that's a whole other avenue of,
mm,
I wanted to say to our listeners to make sure that you're getting assistance and support
mm,
um, as needed if that is needing a therapist
yeah,
or if that's needing to, partner with a psychiatrist and if there's medication that needs to help stabilize. I think that's an important distinction of, yep, there is stress and challenge and overwhelm and then there's another lane that there might be some other needs and something more specific that we need to kind of go into the, see a physician or again, healthcare system to support that. So I just wanted to make sure that we highlighted
yeah,
that difference. Again, particularly Alex, because I do want to encourage our listeners, yes, take responsible for the things that you can indeed look at and control and respond, experiment. You've heard our strategies and take good care of you. You're worth it. And you're worth the trying something new because kind of looking around going like, wow, this is really hard and exhausting and so on, knowing that we need a little bit of change to whatever, think about some relief. So just encouraging that.
absolutely. Yeah, and so I would just say for my major takeaways, listen to yourself, take care of your needs, schedule in rest as a non-negotiable, stay connected with other people, your friends, your colleagues, people older than you who can give you some advice and support. Make sure that we are on a larger, more societal level pushing for change. And self-advocacy is the first step, but then we also want to expand that advocacy to others. But I think that advocating for yourself and your needs will normalize that at whatever workplace that you're at. Like even you just asking for these flexibilities or considerations might open up your boss to consider that for other people. But advocating for yourself and also
Yeah.
advocating for others, the community, the workplace, because we heal together. We need each other. We need to lean on each other for support. And again, self-care is important, but we also need overall cultural change because otherwise this whole burnout situation is not really going to go away just based on our cultural norms. So again, burnout's not an individual flaw, it is something more systemic. that unfortunately we need to kind of take on and solve at an individual level, but doing that will contribute to a larger social and societal change every step that you take towards this. And again, productivity has been moralized. Please try to disconnect that idea that rest means that you're lazy or that productivity is your worth, because it's absolutely essential for your health, well-being, creativity, relationships, etc. So with that, I would just say, burnout is not your fault. The system was built in a way to perpetuate and glorify overworking and productivity. But when we recognize that we're overworking and facing burnout, we can start to resist it and take steps to, as we've talked about, really recognize your values and figure out what we prioritize and therefore how to, balance things so that we can be healthier for ourselves and for our community. So, rest is not selfish. Every time that we choose to slow down, we are chipping away at the culture that tells us that our worth is measured by our exhaustion. So, with that, again, thank you for tuning in. Please do share your advice and suggestions in the comments. We really look forward to your feedback and your thoughts. But otherwise, thank you for tuning in to the Mother Daughter Download. We really look forward to seeing you in our next episode.
Absolutely. Loved it.
Bye, Mama.
Bye.